Okay, guys, just a quick warning before we introduce today's guest. They might make you laugh, so if you're allergic to laughing or a wee bit of comedy, obviously don't tune in. But if you want someone to brighten up your day, we've got no one other than the man himself, JamesyCottar.
It's actually JamesyCottar.
JamesyCottar.
Maybe we're too young to remember that it was a character in that. He was a character in I've seen this, but.
Right, okay.
So, and obviously, my name is James Gardner.
Yeah.
So the JamesyCottar thing just came from, I think, the Waynes are rubbish giving you nicknames when you're a wee boy. So I grew up in Summerston, and my cousins just used to call me JamesyCottar. So I don't know, how old are you, Blair?
I'm 24 now, so I'll be 25 in November.
I'm not asking what age you're going to be in November. No try to get alcohol. I'm not off license. I'm almost 18. No,
you look like a wee bit of an undercover cop there.
No, it's so the reason I ask that is see, before there was social media, obviously you had to just knock on the front door and get with your pals. But when the internet came in, right, there was websites. Not the websites you'll be thinking about, right, but how people kind of interacted. You used to have like internet forums, basically, like websites. That's how you became. So I used to be a member of a website. It's called nightbefore.com, right? And it was a website designed for people to go and talk about nightclubbing in Glasgow, right? And like everybody had to have like a wee username and all that. So people all had mad names. One guy was called The Sopranos. One guy was called Big Jaw. One, Heather was called. I mean, I've got loads of pals for this website from 20 years ago, and my name on that was JamesyCottar. So kind of when like Instagram and all that came back out, well, when I say came back in, when I started getting into these things because I'm like a dinosaur, and the TikTok thing, I was just like, bang, JamesyCottar. So I think that was like that's been like my internet name for everything. It's not James Cotter, just although that's the funniest sort of way I've heard it pronounced. But it's like different. James Cotter, yes. Do you know James Cotter? Yes, I think I know the Cotters. Yes, they're not from Giffnick originally. Actually, they're from East Kilbride, I think.
Good stuff. So when you sort of mentioned the websites there, that was like people used to be like, oh, what's the best thing to do to get into this club and stuff like that? Or was that what it was kind of about?
It was kind of back to when you could almost become rich by having a website with the right name. I mean, that was back in that era. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of. I think back to sort of around about 98, 99. I mean, I'm born in 83, so I was about like 16. That was when people were like buying web domains and all that, and you had like a trend that, oh, we sold that website for 50 grand. You know, like that was quite a big thing. So it was just, it was kind of how people, it was the first foray into sort of interacting digitally to sound like a wanker, digital interaction. Are you allowed to swear on this? I mean, too late now.
I can't say the bag, mate. We'll bleep it out, man. It's fine.
Is it going out live? No, it's not going out.
It's not going out live. No, it's pre-recorded, mate. You're fine.
Swearing's alright. It's freedom of speech, man. You can't have. Listen, you wouldn't have any Glaswegian conversations taking place if you booked out the swearing.
True,
all
mate.
You would hear is hello and goodbye. So that's how people kind of interacted. I used to DJ in a nightclub called the Shack, right? Which your dad will probably remember as the Temple, and before it was Cardinal Foley's, right? And they had a website, shack193.com, and again, that's how people used to go. People would go on and just have a crack, but nobody, you wouldn't put your name in your face. Everybody had like wee.
It's like a troll almost.
It's called an avatar or an avatar, or right. And I think basically it was catfishing back then. That was the early days of catfishing. Yeah. But, so you didn't know anyone to face, and then like. Eventually people would come up, you're JamesyCottar off that website. And then, do you know what I mean? Then you'd be hot tailing it the next day. Mate, tartan pants last night, by the way. What a right. That was the kind of. So that's where the JamesyCottar thing came from. But the website, it was about nightclubs in Glasgow, and it was just kind of, but it was like a general discussion board and all that sort of stuff. So like, I've got a lot of pals that I kind of made from, and it's just, I think back in those early days, that's when like Limmy was knocking about.
It was always like looks like a banger, doesn't it? And
because he had his own website at one point, because he was a Flash developer, so you could go on his website and he made little games. You could smash smash windows and all that. And he had the sorry for this, we need to blunt this out. He had the cunt xylophone. Right. So you could click and it'd be you are a fucking cunt, and you could do it in so many. So like these were, because like again there wasn't when I was at uni, I think they were getting internet training, and it was like, you know, guys, you got you know, if you want to search something, you got Google. But probably just use Yahoo or Bing. I mean, they're better. Do you know what I mean?
Is that like the hipster way of searching something rather than the mainstream
well, no,
way?
It's just that Google wasn't a thing, mate. Like YouTube, I mean, it was like
Ask Jeeves, mate. Ask Jeeves, do you mind that?
Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves, is that sort of thing?
Listen, I was old enough to remember that game. All that game, and I think on YouTube you could only put up 5-minute videos, and then it was 10-minute videos for a long time. So that was.
You could put a 3 hour video up and boss some
10 of us, mate. I can't say panic listening to the rain. You know, there's guys that 600 million views. It's just a guy's put up 10 minutes of rain. You're like, I wish I'd thought of that, man. Living in Glasgow, you could have days worth of footage of that. Do you know what I mean?
I know. Definitely. So that was kind of like pre MySpace and Bebo phase. Did that sort of lately kind of come out?
Then, maybe they were about, but like I say, when you're a wee guy, the internet was for very different things. But no, so there wasn't. These were like your go-to websites, man. It's just there wasn't much sort of happening with that sort of stuff.
I mean the early days of YouTube as well. It was just, I remember like it was like you went. It just looked so like looking back at it now, it looks so like pixelated and stuff, wasn't it? You know.
It was. It was like watching stuff on your. I mean, for us, for older punters, you're like, this is brilliant. We're on that YouTube. Oh, it's amazing and all that. I still watch stuff on YouTube. People, like, my girlfriend's wee sister's like 20. She's like, you watch stuff on YouTube, how sad. And I'm like, that's the best thing. It's the best thing in life, man.
Mind the one that was like the football funnies that came out.
I watch hundreds of stuff on YouTube, but honestly, just watch old goals basically. Just old pop videos. I'm like, I just fucking remember the days when I was 15.
Fair play. So obviously you kind of mentioned Summerston there. What was sort of like life like sort of growing up in that? Obviously you had your sort of websites and stuff.
Growing up was brilliant. I love Summerston. But for me, I had a fairly unusual childhood. My older brother Alexander's got cerebral palsy, he communicates with his eyes, looks up for yes and looks down for no, and he's I don't know, like him, he's profoundly disabled in that regard, severely disabled. So he can't walk or talk. He sits in a moulded wheelchair, needs strapped in, and he needs 24-hour care. So growing up, Alexander was and is a huge part of my life and my personality. So I've grown up, looking after him as well as being, his friend and his brother. So it was quite unusual in that regard because, like my pals would come to the door, you coming out, my mum would be like, take Alexander with you. So she'd bump Alexander down in the wheelchair. And about 8-year-old, 9-year-old, push my brother about Summerston. We'd go and play football as you would. All my pals would jump over the fence into St Blaine's Primary School. Me and Alexander would need to go the long way around. We'd put the chair at the side of the pitch, close enough so you could see the game, far away enough so when they get hit by the ball, they run back and forward every 2 minutes. You hot, you cold, you need a drink, there's sun in your eyes. Boys would go, James, you've played more 1-2s with your brother named in the team here, mate.
Aye. But I suppose it's just what you're kind of you're doing, you know.
Like,
just
so that was that, and I went to a different school as well when I was growing up. So I went to quite a good school. It was a catchment area school called Jordan Hill. Now you need to come from Jordan Hill to go to Jordan Hill, and I went to Jordan Hill from the catchment area of Summerston.
Right.
Which
just out of interest, so Summerston kind of
Mary Hill.
Is it Mary Hill? Right, okay.
Summerston's not near Jordan Hill.
Right,
Summerston is 5 mile away from Jordan Hill.
Right.
I should not have gone to that school. Do you know what I mean? So I think with my brother, my mum kind of. I think they just wanted to try and give me the best opportunity. She probably thought at John Paul Academy, wasn't he? It's a bit rough and all that. My dad went, no, I'll be fine. But I went to Jordan Hill School, and it's an amazing school. But you ever thought about wearing a brown blazer on 3 buses to school and 3 buses back with boys for Mary Hill, Postle Park, Codder? Absolute singled out. So I was so when I went to school, I didn't fit in because they were like, "Oh, you're not from here." Yeah, you know what I mean. And then in Summerston, they'd be like, "You wearing that brown blazer for that mad private school you go to?" Right, which it wasn't. I couldn't afford a private school, and if there's anything wrong with going to a private school, so I stayed in Summerston, just in a house form that I never stayed in. People, you stay in the boat houses, and I'd be like, a boat house? I mean, there's no sails. There's no water around it. No, so you get people, you're posh, ain't you, mate? You stay in that big mad house. What the fuck fucking living the street next to you, mate. Do you know what I mean? So, I was always kind of fighting, because I would always be the one people would go, well, he's quite hard and he's quite hard. That big gardener guy, we'll have a wee go at him, because he's the one that cuts about the broom. So,
so
you were kind of, you didn't fit. But what I would say is, Summerston, it sounds really ridiculous. The best thing I've done has been coming from Summerston. I love Summerston. I love the people there. It was a brilliant place to grow up, because we just played football every night. It was quite rough at the front. The front scheme, you had the back scheme, and then you've got the hoosies in the middle. And listen, nobody really bothered with us, and I'm still really best pals with all my mates from Summerston, my big cousin and all that. So it was really good fun. My mum used to teach keep fit around Summerston as well, and down Mary Hill. So everybody kind of knew. My dad used to work away. He was in the shipyards and stuff. I used to work away in the rigs in the summer if there was no work. So my mum used to take me, my brother in the wheelchair, my wee sister, to the play scheme. My auntie used to run the play scheme. So there's guys who have been, they've all been in the jail and all that, but when I was about 7 or 8, we'd be going to the play scheme, and you'd go out for the day. So what they do is they would take people from, this was called the play scheme, from wherever you lived, and you'd go to like Irvine, Girvan, Troon, Millport, all my day trips.
You go like the art gallery or something like that, Transport Museum.
Transport Museum, And but what was funny is, like, obviously my mum had her hands full, and she'd be like, one guy in particular, she'd be like, well, Charlie, would you mind taking James? And he'd be like, Ethel, no bother, on the shooters, man. And like, they'd be robbing shops blind and all that, and they'd be setting fires to hide, and they were also just good. They were good kids, you know what I mean?
Just being young dafties, sort of thing.
They were a bit rough, and they'd a hard life, but it was great, man. So it was a brilliant, it was a brilliant childhood. But like I say, having the responsibility of my brother as well, like I say, it just made life just a bit different. I used to. One of the reasons I talk so much is Alexander communicates, say, non-verbally, so he looks up for yes and down for no. So you can understand everything. He's got a very clever way of being able to tell you things. So you need to look at him, figure out what he's trying to tell you. So you might, if I say something to him like, I'm like, Alexander, I don't know what it is. He'll be looking at his hands. He's telling you to fuck off, right? Or he'll call you a wanker, but looking down there, or he looks at his heart to tell you how he's feeling, and then you need to say, are you happy? Are you sad? So I talk all the time, because you're having to do all the talking for Al. Then you need to figure out what he's trying to tell you, then you need to say it back in his persona. So that's why I've always put on like voices and tried to make him laugh. And also, like, I don't like sitting in silence, because if you sit in silence, you're ignoring Alexander. So we're always like, you alright? So when I first got together with my girlfriend, she's like, why do you keep asking me if I'm alright? And I'm like, sorry, do you know what I mean? So when people don't know that about you, like when I went to Jordan Hill School, for example, they would be like, oh, do you not get enough attention at home, James? Oh, you're an only child and all that. And you'd be like, no, sorry, miss. My brother's profoundly disabled, and we all, have a different family dynamic. And like I say, it was a great childhood. There's nothing, it's no cross to bear or anything like that. But when people don't know that about you, as we all do, you make judgments. So, people would think, oh, yes, he's a bit of a brat. And you'd be like, teachers wouldn't know that I'd been up through the night with my brother. He'd be taking spasms, not be able to sleep. So I would want
getting him to the toilet or something like that.
I would stay up and I would share a room with him. So I would, I wouldn't wake my mum and dad up. I'd want them to get a rest, because it's physically demanding as well. So so that was my childhood. Very when I say unusual, not that unusual. Everybody thinks their childhood's really unique, but so there was always different stuff going on. We always had to be in the same house, almost in the same room growing up, so I never had any nobody in Summerston had empties. There was one empty in Summerston and the car got blown up. That's a true, because like in Jordan Hill, the difference is sort of class difference. In Jordan Hill, there's loads of empties, because obviously all the parents, once the kids hit 14, 15, like, well, yes, we're away to St Andrews for the weekend.
We're away to France, the south of France and all that sort of stuff, the holiday home.
BAMs migrate to posh areas, like, you'll just go down there. Boys for Temple and all that. But in Summerston, nobody had empties. Maybe like mums would go to somebody else's house for a drink, you know what I mean? But you wouldn't have an empty.
A few beers and a couple packs of crisps Saturday night.
So like, it was a different thing, but it was brilliant fun, man. I loved it.
Brilliant. So like, obviously you sort of mentioned there that you sort of had to obviously like look at your brother and stuff. Are you quite good at reading people facial expression wise? Like, could you tell if someone was upset but they never said it? Could you sort of read it a wee bit?
I think it's not a superpower, and I'll get as loads wrong like anyone else. I think it just makes you more aware of how people communicate, and like you say, a look and also maybe just sort of pausing and maybe probing a wee bit more. It's funny, the older you get, the more you learn about yourself, and the more fucked up you realise you are. And that's everyone, even if you come from a really stable, loving, fulfilled background, you'll still have trauma. And nobody should ever sort of beat themselves up thinking, oh, I've not had it tough, and somebody, because there's always someone that's got it worse. Each thing's big to you. So it just makes you more aware of things. So for me, like, my girlfriend will joke and say, oh, you're such a martyr, and I am. That's just there's a natural tendency for me to think about other people, because I'm always thinking about Alexander, because he can't do things for himself, and that's okay. Like, there's no upset, there's no regret, there's no angst towards that, but in my household, that's what you've got to do, right? So I've always grown up thinking about other people, and then you add that to the kind of, I call it the sort of working class insecurity, where you don't have the confidence to go, I'll take that, give me that job to me. You're like, yes, no problem, that's fine, you can do that, I don't need anything, no, it's fine, don't give me a pay rise, I probably don't deserve it. Whereas I've got mates who went to private school, they're just so confident. They're like, yes, I'll do it for an extra 10 grand. I'm like, oh my god, I've never asked for 10 grand. Don't fund me out, So it kind of it does shape and influence you. But like I say, it's a really good thing. So I'm quite a sensitive big guy, which is maybe not that apparent to folk. You know what I mean? But I'm like, but again, that's something I've started to realise a bit more, because that's just who I am, and I'm having to think about other people, and that's because I think what happens in your formative years has the biggest impact in your latter half, in your personality. You know what I mean? So yeah,
I mean, it's a good thing to be. It's a good sort of trait to have.
It's got its positives and it's got its negatives. You know what I mean? Like, for example, like, I think I was on someone else's podcast and I was talking about it, and like, I'll get really upset with my girlfriend for like such insignificant things, like where, she went up into the shop and before out someone came out with a Coke Zero, I'm like, did you not give me one? You never asked before. I'm like, oh my god, I would never do that to anyone, like, really mortally wounded. I just can't believe it, right? And she's just like, but why didn't you just ask me for one, me, martyr. Oh no, it's just, no, it's fine. So it's just being aware, like, actually, it's not a big deal. Just because that's what you would do, that don't mean that's what everyone else does. You've got to, put your hand up and say, listen, what about me? I'm going to have that. So yeah, it is a good thing. I wouldn't change anything about it. I love my brother to bits, and all the great qualities, or not to be self-aggrandizing, but any great qualities that I have, rather, it's just all the great qualities I have. Any great qualities or good ones I have, I believe have stemmed through having my brother in my life, and helping to look after him, entertain him, and because that's a big part. My sister and I, we've entertained him. I was a DJ for years, but the reason I got into DJing was because my brother loves music, so I would go from the age of 5 into the spare room with my brother, and I would play his records. That would just give mum and dad a bit of respite, just for an hour or two, and I'd be playing. And my brother, so clever, I would just run my finger along the top of the box of records. Imagine a box of records sat upright, and he would know wherever the record was just by running your hand over the top. They're all stacked. It's almost like turning a Yellow Pages on its side and going like that, and he'd go like that one. I'd pull it out, put it on.
Brilliant, man. Brilliant. So obviously, I suppose that kind of worked in your favour. I suppose if you were going clubbing in that and you heard tunes in the dance floor, you could be like, right, come back home, get the record, and just start stick it on for him so he could hear it as well. Sort of thing.
He's into. I mean, I played loads of pop and all that. He was into kind of rock and punk and everything. But just give me a very eclectic taste in music. And like I say, because he's always been into music and DJing, so we've always had sort of decks and equipment and disco lights in the house, and that's how I started DJing. I was 16, working in a pub in Gordon Street, and there was a DJ in there, and I used to talk to him, and I was like, you know, and it just kind of went from there. He asked me to come down and help him out one night in a bar, and I came down one night. At this point, I was maybe just about 17, and he gave me £20. I was working for £3, £3.50 an hour was your minimum wage back in 19.
Do you know I got paid free? See, like I done a job in 6th year of high school. I got paid £3.75 an hour at a takeaway.
Aye, I think I was £3.50, £3.60. I mean, I got paid £2.50 an hour when I was working on the sly when I was 15, but I got £3.60 when I was 16-year-old. So that would have been 1999 in the Republic Beer Hall, which is in Gordon Street, still there now. And so you were, I don't know what you were making if you were working an 8-hour shift, 24 quid. And then I think I went down to do a gig with Jim the Best, and he made £20, man. I was like, £20 to play music, that's amazing. He's like, come back next week. It's
not give up your day job and go do what you love.
The next week, and he'd been sacked, and he went, oh, you need DJ tonight, mate. And I was like, oh, amazing. He gave me £50, so £50 for 3 hours work. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And that's how I ended up. I used to sort of DJ 3-4 nights a week, you know.
Fantastic. So obviously comedy, how did you get into that?
The comedy thing, I did a course. I lived in London. I was a TV presenter for a few years.
Okay.
I was got confused. This is what happens. Just tell you all these things. I worked as a TV presenter. I was a TV producer first. I worked for Satanta. I was a TV producer.
All right.
I presented some of the football on Satanta. Did the Dutch football. It was my opportunity. Did like 3 studios.
Do you know the old firm of that? No.
They don't want to give me the old firm, the biggest game. Right? Why don't you just present that today, James? Fucking hell. I mean, Jim Delahunt and all that, and I was like, yes, I'll do the cover. So I worked with Darryl Curry and all these guys that were on at BT Sport. So good pal of mine. Darryl worked alongside me as an assistant producer. Rory, the Hamilton, the commentator. You know, we used to pick each other up in the morning, and you know, all good guys.
Good stuff.
So I screen tested for Sky Sports News. Never quite made it. I was down in London. I got a job on the shopping channels, so I used to do like Price Drop TV, the Jewellery Channel, these sorts of things. And I screen tested for you got auditions for Channel 4 and all that sort of stuff.
Aye.
And then what happened was just somebody that I shared a flat with, this really handsome guy called David Frampton. You should look him up. He's about 60,000 followers on Instagram. Like the most handsome man you'll find. Right? And he was like, you should do this comedy course. So I did this stand-up comedy course in London. Have you ever seen the TV programme The Office? You must have seen it.
Aye, what, the US one or the UK one? UK one.
And like one of the guys that was in The Office, and there was a guy who'd been in EastEnders, he was on the course. It was a really over like 3 months. So you know, there was actors on it. There was people who maybe just had always wanted to do stand-up. There's people that were like, you know, managing directors of companies who wanted to improve their public speaking. So a real mix of people. And you did, it was like you met up a couple of nights a week for three months, and then you did like a sort of showcase, and that was about 10-12 years ago. I never followed it up. I did like 3 gigs after that, and I never
pursued it sort of thing.
No, I was busy doing the shopping channels, and then I went to the Philippines to play football and all these daft things. And
did you?
I've had all sorts of mad adventures, man. I'm a great example of not sticking at anything. So what happened was I came back to Scotland, back to 2013.
Right.
Still never took up the comedy again. I was working for years in sales, and I think I basically had you could call it a breakdown where I done my masters, I bought a flat and all that, and I was doing this sales job, and I was just hating my life. I was just really miserable, and I didn't realise I was, because if you know you're unhappy, you'll just stop doing what you're doing. You don't realise you're unhappy until you move away from that, if that makes sense. So I was really unhappy, just working all the time just to kind of distract myself from the solitude of my life. Just
to pay the bills to keep the flat sort of going.
I was hundreds of money. I was just unhappy. I was
unhappy at what you were doing.
But you don't know you're unhappy. That's what I mean. That's the thing about being unhappy. You don't. It's dead easy. If you know you're unhappy, it's dead easy to go, I better stop doing this. But you can. That's how I suppose when people talk about their mental health, you don't know someone's unhappy. Are you alright? I'm great and all that.
9.9 times out of 10, everyone will say that. It's like, absolutely. Are you alright? Aye, I'm fine, mate.
You look
don't bother me.
Instagram, I was kicking about nightclubs and At one point I had 2 cars. I bought a Porsche.
Did you?
Yes, I lived myself. I was working for C.R. Smith selling double glazing, doing windows and doors. I was making 6, 7, 8 grand a month at times. And then I bought a flat. I did an MBA. You know, I paid for all that. And then, I'll buy a Porsche. And maybe people will like me more if I buy a Porsche and all that. I used to drive it one day a week. I was so busy I would drive it one day a week because I was working from 10 in the morning to 10 at night. And it was nobody else's fault other than my own. So it looked like I was having a ball. I went to New York, Tokyo, all these Bali, all these amazing things, Vegas. But I was really unhappy and I was really really lonely. So like the work, I think when I used to hear people say, I'm a workaholic, you think, shut up, mate. I was a workaholic, and I wasn't a workaholic because I loved working. I was a workaholic because I enjoyed not having to think about my life, if that made sense. I was just so busy. And it just gave me an outlet. But I was really unhappy. And I think you can either call it an epiphany, an awakening, a realisation, a breakdown, an unravelling, whatever it was. But see what happens is, well, I don't know, is when somebody told me that spending is linked to depression, right? So I don't know if people end up with gambling, they can gamble a lot if they're really unhappy and they're looking, it's a really dangerous road to go down. But I was earning loads of money and I found myself in nearly 40 grand's worth of debt.
What was it? Just how was that? Was it just
you spend
credit cards and that?
What happens is you move things about so it never really looks. You don't really go. A lot of debt here because again you're earning a lot of money. The more you earn, the more you spend.
Definitely.
Yeah, you've got a tax bill to pay. Right, what I'll do is I'll shuffle that one to that one and
balance transfer it and all that sort of thing.
Before you know it, it's very easy to have 8 grand there, 7 grand there, and then that's what happened. And you're paying for this daft car. And you're like, what the fuck am I doing? So in the end, I actually I sold my flat and. Sort of cleared my debt and stuff like that, and kind of started again, and and that was much to the horror of my family.
They were like, "What are you doing?"
Because it's very hard. You don't want it's very hard to say what's going on in your head. So, but that's what happened with me, and I think at that point, like I said, kind of started again. I was like, well, I've always wanted to do the stand-up comedy. Even when I moved back in 2014, I must email the stand, and I never do it. Before you know it, 7 years have passed, or 5 years have passed, and you've not done it. You go, right, so I kind of sort of made a wee sort of vow to myself to try and get back into it, and I did. So that was about 6 months before the pandemic, and I was absolutely, I think I did over 100 gigs in the 6 months. And just kind of really sort of pushed at it, and then obviously we had the kind of COVID and all that. It's been disrupted. So kind of that's really, I would say probably only really now in the last 12 months that's you've been getting a consistent run at gigs because places have been open. There's no extra lockdown because you were that's
restricted the audience as well for the social distancing and stuff.
So it feels now like it's kind of back.
It seems like obviously when you sort of talk about the time with C.R. Smith doing the double glazing and stuff, it seems as if like from your personality you seem as if the type that kind of if you do something you'll do it to the extremes of doing it sort of thing. So for instance, obviously with the double glazing, you were working 12 hour shifts every day. I suppose, did you get sort of paid commission on that, or was it how many units?
I was on commission only. I worked for them in 2 spells. First thing I was is they are a brilliant company, and I honestly I hold them in such high regard. They're an excellent company. They've been in business for over 50 years. They've never gone bust. They've never voided a guarantee. They've never shut down and started again. They've got great people that work there. So there's nothing lies at their door at all. It just, you can work as hard as you want, if that makes sense. And I was the one that was just like extreme, and they was like, great, this guy just wants to keep work, amazing. So and there's nothing wrong with earning commission. there's nothing wrong with, because that's how the world works. There's this kind of aversion to like, oh no, we don't pay our salespeople commission. You're like, well, if you've got a good product and it's worth something, that's okay.
Yeah, but you want to make a cut of that yourself, you know.
Absolutely. It's a they've got a very fair system where you can earn money, and the main thing is you look after customers and you give them a good deal, and they get good service, and that's kind of how it goes. Same in any sales parameter. But the extreme personality thing is, that's it's either all or nothing. Like when I was studying to do my masters, like I went back to uni when I was working, so I was doing a master's degree alongside it. And like I was like, right, I'll not do what I did first time around. I'll study in advance, I'll take it. And I didn't, you know what I mean? I was up through the night writing my thesis and all that, 12 hours to go. And again, that's just that extremity. And I think the older you get, you realise you don't need to be so high, you don't need to be so low. Just try and chart the course a bit more,
mid-pace,
a bit more steadily. But it's easy to say that.
Definitely. So did you kind of chase that towards the end of your CR time at CR Smith? Did you kind of chase the lifestyle, the money aspect about it?
I think it was, like I say, it was just. I mean, I could have been doing anything. It just happened to be that was the company that I was working for. It was just, like I say, I'm 39, right? And a lot of it comes down to I was in my 30s, single, and I lived in London for years. And when I went down to London, I think I was 27 at the time when I moved to London, and like I remember split with my girlfriend at the time, was down in London, and I remember thinking, oh my god, I'll never meet anyone. And like people talking, how old are you? Oh, 27. Oh, you're just a baby, and you think, oh, don't patronise me. But in London, it's such a cosmopolitan city. There's people from all over the world there. So people are out 35, 36, 40, 42, out single, happy, living their life, and then they'll meet somebody at 42 and be married within 6 months and have a baby in that time.
Because man.
Because they've been around, they've both got jobs, they've both got money. It's not a big deal. In smaller cities, Glasgow, Manchester, it's a bit different. Like people tend to be coupled up at 26, 25, house, kids. It's
the house at 30, the kids at 32, and that sort of thing.
There's not as big a single scene in Glasgow as there is perhaps maybe in Edinburgh, because again it's a bit more of an international city. Same as London. So like I was in my 30s, and a lot of my mates have all got kids and houses and missus married and all that. So that's where your kind of loneliness comes in. So all of a sudden you're like, well, what will I do? Will I hang about with these kids?
For to be a date?
No, do you know what I mean? So all of a sudden you can just get caught up. And I was kicking about, my mate owned a nightclub and stuff like that. So you just get caught up in different. I don't want to say different circles. I always had my same, but you just kind of. That's
a different type of life in a sense.
So I was, you look through my Instagram and all that. There's sparklers everywhere, and I'm all these places and all that, and just probably a wanker, really, But again, you don't know at the time, and it's kind of like, well, do I hang about with these people, or do I hang about with nobody at the weekend? So it's easy to get caught up, and then what happens is it's easy to start. You think, I'm spending a lot of money. The guy next to you spending even more, and then you start chasing and again, nobody's to blame but yourself. But you start, buying, £200 trainers, and you want to buy a watch, and then, I remember I saved up and I bought an Amiga watch. After I paid off my debt, I come up the road from London, because everyone's getting debt in London. Cause it's such an expensive city. You come up with the order after paid all that off. And brilliant. Then we all went out to buy this Amiga watch. I treat myself, saved up for a year. I'm going to go and buy this watch, put it on. I said, oh my god, wearing this watch. People are probably going to stop me in the street. Big man, is that? First thing I noticed when I was out, why has everybody got Rolexes on? You know what I mean?
Jings, mate.
So you just, like you say, as soon as
can we pawn that off?
As soon as you it's called compare and despair. As soon as you look at one thing, and that's it. It's really difficult to remain focused and sight on yourself, because it's too easy to look at what's he got, what she got, and then before you know it, you're in a spending spiral,
true, mate.
Which I've been in a few times, man.